Cowboy heard Apache woman's battle cry, rode hard to save her from bear attack. Ethan Blackwood scanned the horizon from horseback, his weathered face betraying nothing as he tracked the Mustang herd through Red Rock canyons. The Arizona Territory stretched before him, vast and indifferent, exactly how he preferred his company these days. His gelding, Scout, moved beneath him with practiced ease, stepping carefully over loose shale as they descended into the shadow of a canyon wall. 3 years in this wilderness, and Ethan had perfected the art of silence. No unnecessary words, no wasted movements, just him, his horses, and the occasional supply run to Fort Goodwin every few months. People there knew better than to ask questions about the former cavalry scout who'd walked away from service after the Red River skirmish. At his makeshift camp that evening, Ethan took out a small tin-type photograph from his saddlebag. A woman with gentle eyes and a young girl with his stubborn chin stared back at him. The fever had taken them both in '77, leaving him nothing but memories and a rage that had eventually hollowed into something worse: emptiness. He tucked the photograph away and unfolded his bedroll. Sleep came reluctantly, as always, interrupted by half-dreamed memories of screaming women and children during raids he'd helped lead as a scout. The Army had called it pacification. Ethan now called it by its true name: slaughter. Morning broke with promise of scorching heat. Ethan followed tracks deeper into the network of canyons, noting how the Mustangs had split into smaller groups. Scout's ears suddenly pricked forward. Detecting something, Ethan felt, a moment later, a sound echoing between rock walls that didn't belong. A woman's voice, high and fierce, followed by the unmistakable roar of a grizzly. Every instinct told him to turn away. An Apache in these canyons meant trouble from both sides. Settlers suspicious of Indian lovers and tribes rightfully distrustful of white men. But something in that cry, not fear, but defiance, pulled him forward. In a small clearing ahead, he saw her, an Apache woman, cornered against rock walls by a massive grizzly. Blood darkened the sleeve of her buckskin dress, but still she stood, knife drawn, eyes fierce with determination to die fighting. Their gazes met briefly across the distance. Hers widened slightly at the sight of him. Recognition of what he was instantly apparent. Ethan hesitated, hand on his rifle. His wife's voice seemed to whisper from the past. A man's character is what he does when no one's watching. With practiced efficiency, he dismounted, raised his rifle, and fired a warning shot into the air. The bear, momentarily startled, turned its massive head toward this new threat, then charged. The following moments blurred in frantic movement. Ethan fired again as the bear closed the distance, scoring a hit that only enraged the animal further. Razor claws caught his side as he dodged, tearing through shirt and flesh. He managed a final shot that drove the grizzly away. But not before the Apache woman collapsed from blood loss. Ethan approached cautiously, finding her unconscious but alive. Rain clouds gathered overhead as he made a decision that would change everything, lifting her onto Scout and heading toward his cabin. From a distant ridge, Lieutenant Marshal Ward lowered his field glasses, a calculating smile crossing his face. Nahimana woke to unfamiliar scents: coffee, leather, and wood smoke. Pain throbbed in her arm as memory returned in fragments. The bear, her knife, a white man with a rifle. Instinctively, her hand moved to her waist, finding her knife missing. Panic surged as she tried to sit up. "Wouldn't try that just yet." The voice came from across the single-room cabin. A tall man with hard eyes set in a sun-weathered face watched her from beside a small wood stove. Not cavalry, no uniform, but something in his stance spoke of military training. "Where am I?" she demanded in halting English. "My cabin." He approached slowly, carrying a tin cup of water. 3 days' ride from Fort Goodwin. Nahimana took the cup without drinking, studying him. Why help Apache? His expression remained unreadable. Bear didn't give me much choice. A violent storm had moved in, rain hammering the cabin's roof. The man, Ethan, he eventually offered, kept his distance, tending his own wound where the bear had caught him. When fever took hold of her that night, she drifted between awareness and delirium, occasionally finding him placing cool cloths on her forehead. "Children sick," she murmured through parched lips. "Need medicine plants." By the 3rd day, Nahimana's fever broke. She watched silently as Ethan moved around the cabin, noting his gentle handling of objects, the practiced way he maintained his weapons when he struggled to rebandage his side. Wincing with the effort, she gestured for him to approach. "Let me see." Her tone left no room for argument. Reluctantly, he sat beside the bed. Nahimana examined the gash along his ribs, deep but clean. From her medicine pouch, miraculously still tied to her belt, she extracted dried herbs, crushing them between her fingers. "This stop infection," she explained, applying the mixture. Their eyes met briefly, an unexpected moment of connection. "Why help me?" he asked, echoing her earlier question. "Seems right thing," she replied, using his own words. The moment shattered at the sound of approaching horses. Ethan moved with surprising speed, ushering her toward a trap door hidden beneath a rug. "Don't make a sound," he whispered, closing it above her. From her hiding place, Nahimana heard bootsteps and voices. One stood out, commanding, smooth, dangerous. "Tracking hostiles. Blackwood. Seen any Apache activity?" "Just passing through. Nothing unusual." The voice, Lieutenant Ward, they called him, continued asking pointed questions about unexplored canyons. Nahimana held her breath when footsteps crossed directly overhead. Pausing. 2 cups on the table. Blackwood. "Expecting company?" "One's from yesterday." The silence stretched before the lieutenant finally departed with his men. When Ethan helped her from the cellar, his expression had changed, concern replacing neutrality. "Ward doesn't usually patrol this far out," he explained. "He's mapping territories, looking for something." That night, watching Ethan carve a small wooden horse by firelight, Nahimana made her decision. She unwrapped a cloth bundle containing rare plants. "For sick children," she said simply, "must return to my people." Morning light filtered through the cabin's single window as Ethan checked his rifle. The storm had passed, leaving behind clear skies and a decision that had kept him awake most of the night. The Apache woman, Nahimana, she'd told him, was preparing to leave, her movements still stiff from her healing wound. "You won't make it 3 miles alone," he said finally. "Not with Ward's men patrolling." Her dark eyes assessed him. "You help more?" "I'll guide you part way." He secured his pistol at his hip. "After that, you're on your own." They set out at dawn, traveling parallel to the main trails. Ethan led them through narrow passes and dry creek beds, using the terrain to conceal their movement. As they rode, an unexpected exchange began to develop between them. "This plant," Nahimana pointed to purple flowers growing between rocks, "stops bleeding." Later, Ethan showed her how to use his spyglass. "Look through here. Brings far things close." Her smile, brief but genuine, caught him off guard. By midday, their conversation had moved beyond practicalities. "You were cavalry," she observed, noting how he scanned the horizon in systematic patterns. "Scout," he corrected. "I led them to villages." The admission hung between them, neither apology nor excuse. Hours later, as they watered the horses at a hidden spring, Nahimana offered her own revelation. "My husband died in raid many moons ago." Their eyes met in silent understanding, two people marked by the same conflict, standing on opposite sides of an invisible line. That afternoon, Ethan spotted movement on a distant ridge through his spyglass. He identified Lieutenant Ward and several soldiers splitting into small groups. Their behavior was unusual, taking water samples from streams that fed into Apache territory. "What they do?" Nahimana asked, taking the spyglass. "Not sure," but suspicion gnawed at him. From their vantage point on higher ground, they watched as a soldier deliberately poured something from a small flask into a spring before marking its location on a map. "Water poisoning," Ethan muttered, the pieces falling into place. That night, camped in a hidden ravine, Nahimana described the mysterious illness affecting her tribe's children: fever, stomach pains, weakness, symptoms consistent with deliberate poisoning. "Why would Ward do this?" Ethan asked. "Feeding small branches into their fire. Gold in our mountains," she explained. White men always want Apache land. As darkness deepened around them, Ethan found himself telling her about his wife and daughter, words he hadn't spoken aloud in years. Nahimana listened without judgment, occasionally adding small pieces of her own story in the flickering firelight. Something shifted between them, a cautious bridge forming across the chasm of their different worlds. For the first time in years, Ethan felt the isolation within him beginning to crack. "Tomorrow," Nahimana said, pointing toward distant mountains, "we find my people." Ethan nodded, knowing he'd already crossed a line from which there was no returning. Nahimana studied the darkening sky as thunderclouds gathered above the canyon. The journey had been harder than she'd anticipated, her wound still tender beneath its dressing. The white man, Ethan, moved with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to this harsh land, leading them through passages she might have missed. "Storm coming," she said, scanning the narrowing walls around them. "Need shelter." Ethan nodded, pointing to a dark opening in the rock face ahead. "Cave there, should be deep enough." Inside, as rain began lashing the landscape, Nahimana collected dry brush for a small fire. The cave's protection offered a moment of security neither had felt since their journey began. Seated across from each other in the flickering light, Nahimana made her decision. "I show you something," she said, removing a folded deerskin from inside her dress. She spread it carefully, revealing a crude map marked with springs, caves, and plant locations. "Not just medicine I seek. Need to find safe water for my people." Ethan studied the map, recognition dawning in his eyes. "This mountain," he pointed to a distinctive peak. "Ward's men have been circling it for weeks. Has cave with old writings," she explained. "Shows all water, all plants for healing, very sacred." "And probably sitting on gold deposits," Ethan added grimly. "That's what Ward's really after." A sound from deeper in the cave startled them both. Ethan drew his pistol while Nahimana gripped her knife. From the shadows emerged a young boy, no more than 12, his arm crudely bandaged and eyes wide with terror. The boy spotted Nahimana and cried out in Apache, backing away when he noticed Ethan. "Kimat!" Nahimana spoke soothingly in their language. "I am Nahimana of Black Mountain Band. This man will not hurt you." Gradually, the boy calmed enough to approach. His story spilled out between sobs. A cavalry patrol had scattered hunting parties near their camp. He'd been separated from his father, wounded by a stray bullet. Ethan surprised her by kneeling beside the boy, gesturing to examine the wound. His touch was gentle, his movements careful as he cleaned and rebandaged the injury using supplies from his saddlebag. "Tell him to drink this." Ethan offered a tin cup with willow bark tea, for pain. Kimat revealed their tribe had moved higher into the mountains after finding their usual springs tainted. Horses, and even 2 elders had died after drinking the water. Later, with the boy asleep between them, Ethan and Nahimana planned their approach to the new camp. "Your people will kill me on sight," Ethan said matter-of-factly. "I speak for you," Nahimana promised. "You save my life. Save boy." In the dying firelight, she caught Ethan watching her, his gaze lingering longer than necessary. Something unspoken passed between them, awareness that transcended their differences. For the first time since her husband's death, Nahimana felt a stirring of something she'd thought forever lost. Outside, the storm raged on, but within the cave, a different kind of transformation had begun. The path to the Apache camp grew steeper as they ascended into the foothills. Ethan led the way, with Nahimana and the boy Kimat following on the single horse. Every ridge and outcropping posed a potential threat. Apache lookouts or wards patrols could spot them at any moment when they paused in a protected hollow. Ethan made a decision. He retrieved his spare pistol from his saddlebag, holding it out to Nahimana. "You might need this." She hesitated. "I not know how." "I'll show you." Ethan positioned himself behind her, guiding her hands around the weapon. "Finger here, outside the trigger, until you're ready to fire." Their bodies aligned as he adjusted her grip, his breath warm against her ear. Nahimana became acutely aware of his proximity, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her back. "Like this?" she asked, her voice unexpectedly soft. "Yes." His reply came equally quiet. For a moment, neither moved, caught in an awareness that had nothing to do with survival. Kimat's voice broke the spell. From his perch on the horse, he pointed excitedly toward a distant ridge where smoke signals rose in thin columns. "My people," Nahimana translated. Her expression grew serious as she turned to Ethan. "You should go now. Be safe." Instead of answering, Ethan checked his weapons. "Ward's men are between here and my cabin. Nowhere safer right now." She studied him, seeing past his practical explanation to the choice he was really making. "Come with me," she said simply. "My people need to know about poisoned water." The Apache camp appeared deserted when they first approached, until warriors materialized from the rocks with bows drawn. Nahimana called out in her language, identifying herself. The tension only increased when they spotted Ethan. Arrows remained aimed at his heart as they were escorted into camp. The tribal council gathered quickly, listening to Nahimana's account of the bear attack, Ethan's rescue, and their discovery of Ward's water poisoning. Kimat's father embraced his son, his grateful eyes meeting Ethan's over the boy's head, while Nahimana treated the sick children with her gathered plants. Ethan shared what he knew of Ward's movements with the tribal leaders. His knowledge of cavalry tactics earned reluctant respect from the warriors. That night, separated by tribal protocol, they exchanged glances across the camp. Something profound had shifted between them, a connection neither had sought, but both now silently acknowledged. Dawn brought alarming news. Scouts reported cavalry approaching from multiple directions. The tribe prepared to flee to their sacred caves, but evacuation of the sick and elderly would be slow. Ethan approached the chief, offering a strategy. "I can lead a diversion. Draw them away from your escape route." When the chief accepted, with a solemn nod, Ethan felt the weight of his decision. There would be no returning to his old life after this, before he could mount up. Nahimana pulled him aside, her eyes intense. "Why risk life for people not yours?" His answer surprised even himself. "Maybe they're becoming mine." The kiss that followed was brief but fierce, carrying the weight of possibly never seeing each other again. Then Ethan rode out with 3 Apache warriors, crossing his personal point of no return. The diversionary plan worked initially. Ethan led Ward's men into a narrow canyon while the Apache tribe retreated toward their sacred caves. He and his 3 Apache companions separated the cavalry into smaller groups, using the terrain to their advantage. "Circle back," Ethan directed the warriors in broken Apache phrases Nahimana had taught him. "Make sure your people reached safety." As the warriors disappeared into the landscape, Ethan continued drawing the main patrol deeper into the canyon maze. Lieutenant Ward's voice echoed between rock walls, ordering his men to spread out. "Blackwood traitor to your own kind." Ethan ignored the taunt, focusing on laying a false trail away from the tribe's escape route. He'd nearly reached the canyon's far exit when rifle fire erupted from an unexpected direction. A separate cavalry detachment had circled around, cutting off the tribe's path to the caves, spurring Scout to a gallop. Ethan raced back toward the sounds of fighting. From a high ridge, he saw the nightmare unfolding, women and children trapped in open ground between rock formations. Nahimana was visible at the front, guiding elders toward the cave entrance while warriors provided covering fire, using his knowledge of cavalry tactics. Ethan created a strategy combining Apache stealth with his marksmanship. He signaled the warriors with mirror flashes, directing them to positions that would maximize their effectiveness against the superior firepower. The resulting skirmish allowed most of the tribe to reach the caves, but Nahimana stayed behind, helping a fallen elder. Ethan's heart stopped when he saw Ward himself ride down and capture her, dragging her into the open. Surrender. Blackwood. The standoff revealed Ward's true purpose as he demanded access to the caves. "These mountains are worth a fortune in gold deposits. The Apache are sitting on treasure they don't even value." Ethan lowered his rifle, stepping into the open. "Let her go." Ward. "Take me instead." Ward's smile was cold as he agreed, but double-crossed him immediately. "You'll both guide me to whatever's in those caves." The Apache superstitions about sacred places usually mean they're protecting something valuable. Inside the cave system, Nahimana led them through a labyrinth of passages, exchanging subtle glances with Ethan. They were playing for time, leading Ward's men in circles while the tribe fortified deeper chambers. When Ward realized the deception, he erupted in rage. "I'll dynamite this entire mountain." The central chamber they eventually reached contained not gold, but ancient tribal records, knowledge painted on stone walls showing water sources, plant locations, and tribal history stretching back generations. "This is your treasure?" Ward sneered, drawing his pistol. "Worthless Indian scribblings?" As he aimed at the irreplaceable records, Nahimana launched herself at him with a battle cry that echoed through the cavern. In the chaotic fight that followed, Ethan and Nahimana worked in perfect tandem, his frontal assault allowing her to use hidden passages to outflank the soldiers. Ward, cornered and desperate, took final aim at Nahimana. Ethan threw himself into the bullet's path, collapsing as Apache warriors swarmed the remaining soldiers. The last thing he saw was Nahimana's face above him. Her fierce eyes filled with tears as darkness claimed him. Ethan drifted through layers of consciousness, aware first of pain, then of gentle hands changing bandages, opening his eyes to filtered sunlight. He found himself in an Apache healing lodge, its smoke hole framing a patch of blue sky. Nahimana sat beside him, grinding herbs in a stone mortar. "You return," she said, relief softening her features. 3 days you sleep. Memory returned in fragments. The cave, Ward's gun, the searing pain of the bullet. Ward? Alive. His men take him to Fort Goodwin. She helped him sip water from a clay cup. Your friend there now, officer with honest eyes. Captain James Peterson. Ethan realized they'd served together before Red River, a man who still believed in justice. The tribe? He asked. Safe. New camp by Clean Springs. Nahimana's hand lingered on his as she replaced the cup. Council says you are Mashkiziwinini, medicine person, for saving our records. During his recovery, their worlds merged in small, significant ways. Nahimana taught him Apache words for plants and animals. He told her stories from his travels as a younger man, when pain kept him awake at night. She sang healing songs her grandmother had taught her. The tribal council's decision came as a surprise to both of them. They offer Tabadidizwin, protected status, Nahimana explained. No Apache done this for white man before, but both understood the reality. Neither world would fully accept what had grown between them. The cavalry considered Ethan a traitor. Many Apaches still viewed him with suspicion despite the council's decision. When Ethan could ride again, they traveled together to a borderland between territories, a fertile valley with clear streams that Ethan recognized as perfect for horses. Could build something here, he suggested, surveying the land, not just for me or your people, a place between. Trading post, Nahimana nodded thoughtfully. My medicine, your horses. A bridge, Ethan added, taking her hand. 2 months later, they stood on a ridge overlooking the valley where construction had begun. The trading post took shape below, a structure neither fully Apache nor white in design. Several families from Nahimana's tribe worked alongside 2 former cavalrymen who deserted after learning of Ward's crimes. In the distance, they spotted a familiar grizzly with cubs, the same bear from their first encounter, now ranging far from the canyon where they'd met. Makwa brings people to right path when they are lost, Nahimana explained, using the Apache word for bear. Medicine teachers say this. Ethan's arm encircled her waist, the gesture speaking volumes about his transformation. The emptiness that had hollowed him for years had been filled with something he'd never expected to find, not just love, but purpose. Wasn't lost, he said quietly, watching the sun set over their new beginning, just waiting to be found. In the valley below, Apache children played alongside the settlers' children, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze, the first notes of a harmony few believed possible, but which Ethan and Nahimana now lived every day.